There I stood, my suitcase gripped tightly in my hand, watching my wife's private jet soar into the sky without me. The scene was surreal. The sleek silver jet glinted under the morning sun as it ascended into the clouds, leaving me alone in the bustling terminal. The distance between us felt vast, not just physically, but emotionally. This was supposed to be our weekend, a celebration of everything we'd built together over the years. Paris, the city of love. Yet, as I stood there, my heart sank with every passing second, realizing that the future I had imagined for us was no longer mine to hold. I had expected nothing less than a romantic getaway, a chance to reconnect with the woman I had shared my life with. Instead, I watched as she boarded the jet without so much as a glance in my direction, surrounded by a group of her friends, laughing and chatting as though she were the center of the universe. I felt the weight of humiliation and betrayal press down on me, but beneath it, a spark of something else began to stir, something I hadn't felt in years. It was defiance. I didn't have to wait long for Emma to reveal the truth. She approached me casually, a gleam of smug satisfaction in her eyes. "I changed the plans," she said, as if it were no big deal. "It's a girls' trip now. You don't mind, do you?" Her words, so flippant and dismissive, stung deeper than I expected. She was barely looking at me, her attention already shifting toward the others in her entourage. I stood there, frozen, as she turned to leave, her laughter trailing behind her. A rush of indignation flooded my chest, but beneath the anger was something more profound: disillusionment. For years, I had let my life revolve around Emma, always playing second fiddle to her ambitions, her needs, her desires. And now, in this moment, I understood just how far I'd fallen into her shadow. I wasn't going to beg for her attention anymore. No more waiting. No more compromising. It was time to take control of my own life. With a newfound sense of resolve, I walked toward the first-class desk. The anger I'd felt moments ago had melted into something more purposeful: determination. I wasn't leaving behind everything I knew. I was stepping toward something better, something mine. I had the miles, the money, and the means. The choice was simple. "Paris, please," I told the attendant, my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside me. In minutes, I had a first-class ticket to the city that had always been a dream. But this time, it wasn't a dream shared with Emma. It was mine alone. As I made my way to the gate, a sense of liberation washed over me. This wasn't just about escaping her. It was about rediscovering myself. All those years of putting her dreams first, of sacrificing my own desires for her happiness, had led me to this pivotal moment. I had lived her life for far too long. Now, it was time to live my own. The weight of the decision settled in as I boarded the plane, but my mind was already racing. I had done more than book a flight. I had made a break. Before leaving, I had sent an automated email, one I knew Emma would receive the moment she checked her messages. It was a preliminary separation agreement sent from our lawyer. I could already imagine her reaction, her stunned disbelief. It was no longer a question of if our marriage was over, but when she'd face the truth. David stepped off the plane and into the chaotic, buzzing energy of Paris. The airport was a cacophony of voices in different languages, a swirl of movement, and endless signs in unfamiliar fonts. But to David, it was all exhilarating. The noise, the crowds, the foreigners. It all felt like a clean slate, as if the city itself was welcoming him to leave his past behind and start anew. He had arrived in Paris not as a man who had lost everything, but as someone who had finally freed himself from a life that never truly belonged to him. His phone buzzed incessantly, each notification another reminder of Emma's presence in his life. 155 unread messages. His eyes skimmed the screen, catching glimpses of desperate pleas, angry rants, and incoherent frustration. He didn't bother reading a single one. Instead, he embraced the quiet peace that came with being untethered, the serenity of his first-class seat still lingering in his mind. The wine, the view, the experience of flying without her, it had been luxurious in a way that had nothing to do with opulence and everything to do with freedom. Paris was not just a city, it was a symbol. For years, he had been Emma's accessory, a carefully curated part of her life, but never truly part of it. In this city, he was finally free from the expectations, the image, and the world she had so meticulously built around them. Here, David was no longer a shadow. He was a man reclaiming his own identity. As David stepped into the streets of Paris, he had no idea that this new chapter of his life would begin with an unexpected encounter. Marco Levant, an old business partner of Emma's, nearly bumped into him on the crowded sidewalk. David recognized Marco immediately, a brilliant mind in the tech world, someone who had once shared a vision with Emma before their falling out. Marco had left her company years ago, citing creative differences, and had since become a rival in the industry. David Blake, of all people, Marco said with a smirk, giving him a quick handshake. I thought I might run into you here. David chuckled lightly, but there was an edge to his voice that Marco picked up on instantly. Something tells me you're not just here for the sights, Marco said, his eyes narrowing. I heard about the airport incident. David didn't bother hiding his irritation, but Marco's demeanor remained calm and knowing. He leaned in a little closer. You know, Marco continued, I've always admired your work. Emma never really gave you the credit you deserved. She's always been too focused on her own brand, but you had the ideas. You still do. David was taken aback. He hadn't expected such insight, especially from someone who had distanced himself from Emma long ago. Marco's words stirred something deep within him, a realization that maybe he had been more than just Emma's supporting cast. I've got something for you, Marco added, handing David a sleek black invitation. There's a tech summit here in Paris this weekend. Emma was supposed to attend, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to make it now. You should come. It's time you stop letting her take all the credit for your work. David stared at the invitation, the weight of Marco's words sinking in. This could be his moment to step out of Emma's shadow for good, to finally reclaim what had always been his self-worth, his career, and his identity. Marco was offering him a chance, but it wasn't just an opportunity, it was a challenge. Would David finally take control of his own life and career? The invitation, now tucked into his jacket, weighed heavily on David's mind. It was more than just a simple ticket to a tech summit. It symbolized the chance to reclaim what he had lost over the years. Emma had always minimized his contributions, sidelining his ideas and passions in favor of her own ambitions. He had willingly played the supportive role, always putting her needs first and sacrificing his own. But now, standing in the heart of Paris, David understood that this trip wasn't just about escaping Emma's shadow. It was about rediscovering who he truly was, an individual with his own interests, dreams, and ambitions. The life he'd lived in her shadow had stifled his potential. He was ready to explore a future on his own terms. David made his decision. He would attend the summit. It wasn't just about the event itself. It was about making a statement to Emma. He was no longer waiting for her approval. He was stepping into a new chapter, one where he had control over his own choices. As he entered the summit, David felt an exhilarating sense of belonging. Here, no one knew him as Emma's husband. Instead, he was seen for who he truly was, and he engaged in conversations that reignited his excitement about his own potential. From across the room, David spotted Emma, preparing her presentation at the front. She hadn't seen him yet, and David smiled to himself, knowing that this was the turning point. He was no longer her accessory. He was David Blake, carving his own path. As David walked away from the summit, he wasn't walking in anyone's shadow. He was stepping into the life he had always deserved. Paris had become his playground, and he was ready to seize every opportunity that came his way. His journey toward self-discovery had just begun, and he was finally living life on his own terms,